We're going to start with real numbers. Real numbers are the numbers that we use every day. Do you remember imaginary numbers from last year? Yeah. Like the square root of -1, the square root of negative anything is an imaginary number. So we're not talking about imaginaries, we're talking just about real numbers. In the real number system, there are natural numbers. Natural numbers are like the counting numbers. Like if you count your fingers and your toes, those are natural numbers. 1, 2, 3, there's no decimals and there's no zero. So you might want to add in there no zero. Integers are negatives, positives, and zero, but there are still no decimals. Rational numbers, the root of the word is ratio, which means fraction. So rational numbers are decimals that either terminate, so they end, like 2.4, it ends, so that's a rational number, or it's a repeated decimal, like 0.81818181. If it has a pattern like that, that is a rational number. Ultimately, if you can turn it into a fraction, it's a rational number. Irrational numbers are like the square root of 2 and pi, numbers that are decimals that just keep on going forever and ever with no pattern. Those are irrational numbers. The interesting thing, this big green circle, if you're anywhere in this big green circle, you are a rational number. So 3 is also a rational number. 3 is a natural number, an integer, and a rational number, because 3/1, that's a fraction, so it's a rational number. So on the next slide, basically what I'm saying is, if you are A, you're A, B, and C. If you're B, you are B and C. So this moves in this direction. If you're C, you're just C. If you're D, you're just D. And I will never try to trick you on a test. I will always write the directions like this in the correct order. So you know if it's natural, integer, and rational. If it's integer and rational. If it's rational, you stop. If it's irrational, you stop. So -5. Anyone know what -5 is? What type of number? It's an integer, B. So it's B and C. It's an integer and it's a rational number. What about 0? B and C. I'd like you to try the rest of these on your own, and then I'll go through them in just a second. 5/4, that's a fraction, so that is a rational, C. 3.14, this one's a trick one. Rational. It's rational. 0.14 is 14/100, so 314/100 would be 3.14. You could turn this into a fraction because the decimal terminates, it ends. How about 5, pi? D, irrational. 999,999,999. A, B, C. Square root of 3. D. If it's a square root that's not a perfect square, it's going to be irrational. So square root of 3, if you can't do the square root of 3 in your head, it's going to be irrational. Number 8, if you're watching the video, you can't really see number 8. It's the square root of 9. Number 8 is A, because the square root of 9 is 3. And the square root of 9 being 3, that means it's A and B and C. Right. Less than and greater than. Remember, less than is like a squished L. Greater than is like a, well, backwards of that. You're greater than, you use your right hand. You're less than, you use your left hand to make it. And the farther to the right you are on the number line, that one's bigger. On the left is less than. I don't think you even have that slide in your notes. So this slide, describe the relationship. We've got 3 and 5. Which one's bigger? 5. So the alligator eats the 5. Or when I was a kid, we did this because Pac-Man was a big thing. But some of you apparently don't know what Pac-Man is. So I know, it's weird. I got to a point in teaching when I'm like, you know, Pac-Man eats the, and my class just stared at me blankly. And I'm like, I'm old now. Okay, cool. Negative numbers can be a little bit difficult. Remember, if you compare them, the one that's closer to 0 is bigger. So negative 1.09 is bigger than negative 1.9. With negative numbers, honestly, sometimes I still have to put them on a number line because especially with decimals, it can be a little weird. On the next slide, ordering fractions. I would strongly suggest that you change them to decimals. In the book, they want you to get common denominators. But if I start talking about fractions with common denominators, how many of you are like, she just said an F word on the first day of school? So take the fraction, instead of getting a common denominator, just change it into a decimal by doing top number divided by bottom number. So on your own, if you don't have a calculator, you can use your phone. Take 9 divided by 16, get the decimal. 5 divided by 8, get the decimal, and then compare. Take a moment, compare A, B, C, and D. Write the symbol in there. All right, here are the fractions. So in A, 0.625 is bigger. In B, if you look at a number line, negative 2.5 is halfway between negative 2 and negative 3. Negative 2.33 is only like a third of the way between. So negative 2.33 is bigger. 3 is bigger than negative 4. And which one's bigger in D? Negative 6.58. Okay, so far is this like totally easy peasy? This is kind of like, I think they have these in the science section of the ACT. They give you a chart or a graph and ask you to analyze it, make a statement from it. So let's just talk about this. This is company profits in millions of dollars. In 2008, they had a profit of $42.1 million. In 2009, what was their profit? Negative 15 point, they lost $15.2 million. Do you guys know what was happening 2008, 2009? The market like totally crashed. Auto industry crashed. The housing market crashed. It was kind of bad for a lot of people. So compare the profit for 2008 to 2009. You could write 42.1 is greater than negative 15.2. That's kind of a duh statement. Write a statement that summarizes the trend in company profits. Honestly, you could write a paragraph about this if you really wanted to. I don't expect you to, but as long as you say something about they had huge profits in 2008, 2009, 2010, they lost money, and then they started increasing their profits from then on. Anything about any of that you wanted to say would be totally fine if you had a problem like this on homework, test, or quiz. Absolute value is the distance that a number is from 0. So negative 8, the absolute value of negative 8 is positive 8 because it's 8 units away from 0. The absolute value of positive 8 is positive 8 because it's 8 units away from 0. So absolute value gets rid of the negative. It's how many units away from 0 that number is. So take a moment and do all of these on your own. The first 3 I think were pretty easy. For D, we've got negative 4, and here you need to do the absolute value of negative 4, which is positive 4, and then bring the negative down. So on D, they are equal. E, we've got 12 and 15. 15 is bigger. And here we've got 2 and negative 2. 2 is bigger. I'll be giving you an assignment sheet that shows all of the assignments for this chapter. This book is kind of weird because it has examples followed by problems and then more examples followed by more problems. So the assignment actually spans several pages. Your assignment's going to start on page 4 because I'm crossing off the first problem. I'm also crossing off the last problem. This looks like a lot. I promise it won't take very long. It'll maybe take you 5-10 minutes tops. So starting on page 4 in those white college prep algebra books, 18, 20, 24 through 30 evens, 44, 48, 50, 52, 82, 84. I try to jump around on the assignment to give you a few problems of each type. just do it on a separate sheet of paper, or if you don't have paper today, if you want to do that on the back of your notes, you could. As you're working on your assignment, I'll come around and grab your note cards and touch base with you if necessary.